Okay, everyone, just to keep things moving tonight, why don't we have, if anyone has anything they'd like to say about why they're here tonight or what came out of the small group discussions, let's hear from you before we hear from our speakers. See, I have to look for some volunteers, I think. Yes. Hi. Yeah. Could you come up to the microphone?
No problem. Go, we can leave there.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Brewer-Kiefer and I am a real estate agent, residential and commercial with Keller Williams. And our group has come up with the following fantastic ideas or reasons for why we are here. We'd like to see more young people engaged in the Noble neighborhood. We'd like to focus on commercial development and revitalization in the Mayfield Noble Triangle Commercial District. We're here to engage with like-minded people and to get away from our one-year-olds. Attract new buyers to the Noble neighborhood by way of vibrant commercial areas, such as the Mayfield Noble Triangle. City tax abatement, heightened and challenged areas of Cleveland Heights and University Heights. We'd like to see that brought up more and utilized in those areas. Development and new development of residential and commercial areas. Things such as Bluestone is one thing that pops in my mind. We'd like to raise awareness with NOAA, which Travell here is here to speak about. And we'd like to connect different small groups, for example, PTAs and SIDS. It's basically the reason why we are all here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Come on.
Hello everyone, my name is Melissa, and I had the pleasure of being at a table with Amy, Kate, Sue, and Ray, which moved away from the table. But we all were lucky enough to be transplants from different areas. So some of us have lived in Hawaii, Chicago. I lived in Philadelphia for a while, but we're all here to learn more community building activities so that we can be involved, get more individuals involved. I myself would like to do something with bringing youth in coding. I'm at the Cleveland Heights East Cleveland border, so I would like to see more in East Cleveland to reduce the digital divide that's there. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. We need more. Okay, great.
Hello everyone, my name is Kwame. I'm a student at MSAS and I see a couple of my people around, so shout outs to all of you. So our group over there looks like all of us are new to the area, so we had a number of reasons for being here. One of them is to get involved with the community and learn more about it and activities. Thank you. To get the community's perspective on this community and also get involved in the activities that are taking place. 3, to connect with community members and learn more about them and what they think of their community. And then 4, we have 2 awesome parents here who have heard a lot of awesome things about what their daughter has been doing, so they are here to learn more about it and just support her. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? If not, I don't think there's any. Okay, we'll get started now. We're going to start with Travell Harp. So you're going to lead right into your presentation. Oh, why don't all the speakers come up then? I didn't realize we were doing it that way, sorry. So have all the speakers come up to the front here and yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how I got Duke going first. How's everyone doing tonight? Was that a level on me? Yeah. That's what it was. How's this going? So my name is Terrell Harp. So I have a great love for Cleveland Heights. Actually, I I started off in East Cleveland, and my parents matriculated up to Cleveland Heights. They still stay on Woodridge, which is off of, I guess you can get off of Noble, right? And so also Cleveland Heights High. How many people graduated from Cleveland Heights High in the room? Y'all, is it a Tiger Roar or something that we do? I graduated from Cleveland. Go ahead, come on. We could, it's okay to liven the space up, right? Okay. It's okay. So anyway, graduated from Cleveland Heights High. I'm actually excited about the new high school, right? Now y'all can speak to me, right? Are y'all excited about the new high school? Yes. Okay, there we go. So one thing you're gonna learn about me, you guys gotta speak back to me, right? Because you have to build on that energy. Well, anyway, but long story short, my name is Travell Hart. I'm the executive director of the Northeast Ohio Alliance for Hope, also known as NOAA. Now we say Northeast Ohio Alliance for Hope. The organization really started off as like a faith institutional-based organization that sort of like transformed into a neighborhood-based organization based in East Cleveland, Ohio, and everything. But we do a lot of neighborhood organizing. We believe in people. In fact, like if we wanted to sum like our mission up in a couple statements, right? Invest in people, develop leaders, and transform communities. And we believe that we need all those particular components in order to transform communities. Now, you guys are here today to talk a little bit about, getting neighborhoods together. And also, please excuse me, I see Dr. Chuck in the room. Could y'all give him a hand? Could you raise your hands for a second? Representative Excess, Case Reserve, he's done a lot of partnership work with East Cleveland and NOAA and everything. So, and you guys are lucky to have him here in Cleveland Heights as well. Well, anyway, going into this, so community organizing is based on relationships, right? It's building relationships with other people and everything. And we know that like everything, like if you go to any community organizing training and drink the Kool-Aid and everything, you're going to talk about relationships and power, right? And how those things work and interact and everything. But how many people know that we're stronger together, right? Yeah. We're stronger together. You can say, oh yeah, somebody can even say amen. I don't know if we're in the Pentecostal church or not, but the long story short, we're stronger together. So synergy pretty much means that like 1 + 2 equals 5 or 10 or 15. It's exponential, right? And so, but in order to do that, as an organization, as a community-based organization that specializes in community organizing and neighborhood organizing, it's important for us. Hey Phil, how you doing, man? He started organizing right when I started organizing. He's Mahoney Valley Organizing, the collaborative and everywhere. I just had to shout out for him. Anyway, long story short, when you invest in people, that's how you begin to build your social capital so that you can begin to build relationships with one another so you can do things. And so when you do that, you build power, right? That's right. Y'all can answer me. Y'all can say, Phil, help them out, man. They don't know. But anyway, so you build power. So long story short, then you're able to do things because you build social connections because you're stronger together than apart, right? And so when you invest in people, hopefully when you invest in people, you begin to develop leaders. And then those things combined, you begin to transform community. And so a lot of you guys don't seem convinced about like, some of the, coming together that can actually do anything, right? When I first started organizing, one of our first campaigns were around vacant properties. Long story short, we wanted to, we had a lot of vacant properties, did a listening campaign. That was the biggest issue in the room. Long story short, you can kind of see like all these hands up. And that represents something, right? Because when more than one person move in the same direction with the same attitude and the same focus, the common interest, then you can transform the minds and decisions of public officials and anybody else in the room and that kind of thing. And so this is sort of like an example of that. But one of our first campaigns was dealing around vacant properties, and we literally changed the political will to actually allow East Cleveland to become the first suburb to have a formalized relationship with the Caldwell County Land Bank. And I think that's a great thing. And so you guys still don't seem convinced, right? So this right here, Patterson Park is like the second largest park in East Cleveland. And one of the things that we wanted to do as an organization, once we figured out we wanted to be a community development organization as well as a community organizing group, is we wanted to work to change the physical, appearance of East Cleveland, change the physical aesthetics, so it'd be a little bit more, so we could take advantage of our assets. Long story short, this is what this park looked like then, right? We did a little bit of organizing in that park, about 17 acres, and literally transformed that whole block. Now we still got a lot of work to do, but the thing is, it's about bringing people together, bringing young people together, bringing families together, older people, and working collectively to do something positive. Now, when we started this campaign, Dr. Chuck knows we didn't have any funding to actually do this. But I would like to report to date, between 2015 to today, over $200,000 worth of work and money and resources and in-kind donations has been worked to actually do this. And the people who move this are neighborhood people within the community, right? And so that's a good thing. I see your hand. I see your hand. And so we were able to do a bunch of events there, because how many people know once you do the work, you got to celebrate, right? That's so important. Can I get an amen? Give me an amen. So you got to celebrate after you do the work, right? And so we celebrated. We had concerts at the park. This particular piece, I know you guys can't see it from that far away, but it was overgrown with trees. There were residents that lived behind this particular part of the park over 20 years didn't know it was there. And we changed it into a stage. And it was already there. We had to trim away the trees and that kind of stuff. And then, activities for youth and families and, all kind of stuff. So what I'm trying to say is, in order to create a better community, you guys have to be active participants in your own deliverance, right? You have to be the change agents that you want to see. I know I'm saying all these cliches, excuse me, but it's true. You guys got the power to transform your neighborhoods. And so I saw a question back there before I go to the next thing.
Where's that park?
So the park is at the intersection of Hayden and Eddy Road. So let's say you're coming down Eddy Road from McDonald's and Euclid, and you go under the bridge. That's where that park is at. And so a lot of work over there. I see a hand in the back. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question. So this is very interesting. So the park was actually, it was named after the first president of the City Commission for East Cleveland back in the early, I think 1920s. The land is actually owned by the city of Cleveland, but it's in the city of East Cleveland city limits. So long story short, so let's say if you own property, right? That's the same way Cleveland owns this property and everything, but it's 17 acres within there. And the agreement is that East Cleveland is supposed to maintain and take care of it. Of course, because of some of the fiscal challenges that the city has, it hasn't really been maintained for a while until now. But we're working on building those partnerships with the city of Cleveland or the metro parks and that kind of thing to sort of work with that. But that's the history of that. Another question?
I think something like that, and I think liability. Okay, if somebody gets hurt on that property, who has the liability for cleaning?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, those questions are always there. But you know what? I'm here to promote the positive side of everything too. So yeah. So why? You should just all give up, right? No, we're not going to give up and everything. But the question is, one of the things I like to say, a testimony about this park. So a couple of reasons why we decided to do this. A kid that I was mentoring, and he kind of got away from me because I wasn't cool, I guess. After a while, he started hanging around with the wrong people. But his brother got shot and killed down the street. So who's responsible for that liability, right? And so one of the things that we realized was there were no safe places for kids to actually recreate. And the city didn't have the resources to do anything about it and that kind of thing. So that's why we began to actually invest in that. And right now that park is so utilized, and there's been so many positive things that's happening there and everything. We want to keep that momentum going. I see a question over there.
I just want to point out to people that that park is the extension of the Dugway watershed that comes down from Cleveland Heights to Lake Erie via Patterson Park and then the other parks along the way.
It sure is.
Space pretty much all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So it used to be open and they buried it up and everything. I think they had some other plans for it, but they didn't, so they made it a park and that kind of thing. But you're exactly right about that. And so this is here again, another thing that community residents can do when they come together. Now, this is something that happened. If you guys still not convinced that if you come together and work together and do something, right? Everything, that you can actually do something, that you can actually change something, right? So one of the things that East Cleveland was struggling with, of course, and most of the city of Cleveland and East Cleveland and some of Cleveland Heights, because I've seen you guys take advantage of this particular resource as well, is the Cuyahoga County Property Demolition Fund. How many people know about that? And so long story short, vacant abandoned properties, public nuisances and everything, whatever you want to have it, has been a problem in Northeast Ohio for a long time, particularly in Cleveland and East Cleveland, but certainly spread around a lot of the inner suburbs. And there needed to be something to actually address that issue because it's affecting property value and all that kind of thing, and it's also affecting people's quality of life. Well, this right here was a community meeting that we had, I think back in 2014, basically where we had residents come up and literally articulate, to county council, about 6 out of 11 came, why this is important. Now, they were complacent on passing it before, but after this meeting, they actually passed it unanimously. And I like to think that we had a lot of influence with that. And so those are ways, that you can actually influence your community to actually do things, to actually move things along, to actually improve the things that you're fighting for, to improve the quality of life, the things that you're fighting for. And so there's no secret that East Cleveland has some challenges. How many people know East Cleveland has some challenges? Raise your hand. Anything? Everybody knows that part about it, right? And there's been conversations about annexation and everything. It was polarizing in the community, but when that legislation was submitted to the city of Cleveland, they pretty much turned it down. And so it left us with, trying to figure out things, on our own, basically. And so long story short, through that time, there's a mayor that was recalled and the city council president that was recalled, and then there's new leadership that happens within the organization. But within the city of East Cleveland, but I bring all up to say is that that's why it's important to invest in people, because the very person that actually came into office as a new mayor volunteered for NOAA since its inception in East Cleveland, and knew about community organizing, that kind of thing. And when he got in, he took those community organizing principles to work. I got 4 minutes, okay. So I'm almost done. So long story short, when he became mayor, we laid out a new organizing strategy. And so what this basically is, I know you guys can't really see this. And so one of the things, and maybe I'll go to this slide first and then go back. So one of the things that we did, and this was sort of based off a conversation, I don't know if you guys watch the news any, but the Forest Hill neighborhood, which is part of the city of Cleveland Heights as well, was a part of this sort of news coverage. When they began to have dialogue with the city of East Cleveland about quality of life issues and saying, okay, so how can we do something to address these issues? And so they pretty much organized themselves over here in this area. And then long story short, they began to see some things done. And then so I was talking to Mayor King and his chief of staff, and we were talking about, well, we need to do this citywide. And so we literally, within about maybe 6 to 8 months, rolled out an organizing strategy that organized almost the entire city around these sort of type of principles. And so this area is already organized as well. And a lot of this stuff is organized now as we speak. This is an older map. But long story, let me show you what happened. And so basically we said, okay, we know that there's limited resources that the city can spend in neighborhoods. But instead of trying to just guess on what people want to prioritize and just sort of doing things, why not let the neighborhoods decide? And so basically in one NOAA meeting, we were able to give representation throughout the whole entire city. And we said, okay, if you want to address quality of life issues within your neighborhood, street by street, help us organize your neighborhoods around this and everything so that we can begin to figure out what those things are, categorize them and everything, and then get close and then present that information to the administration so they can actually see what they can do. So literally, we created these forms, and these forms are basically for one per street. And so they had up there, of course, I had the name, the date, the street, the name of the street, and then how many vacant properties on the street, what street lights are out that need to be fixed, what trees need to be trimmed. And then if there's a raccoon problem, is there a neighbor that maybe they're not taking care of their house and they need to be cited or something like that. All those different types of things, they were able to put in there. And so literally all these neighborhoods basically, they came, we talked, we spoke. I worked with them to show them how to do turnout and everything. They built a team around themselves. They did a turnout strategy. How many people know what I mean about turnout? How many people know that? So in other words, how do you get people in a room? How do you get butts in the seat, right? Excuse my language, right? So you guys understand what I mean, right? Is that difficult for people to do sometimes, to get people in the room to talk about issues and everything? So what we did was we began to train them on how to do that. And literally, the true thing about community organizing, Phil tell you, never do for people what they can do for themselves, right? You know what? They organize themselves. We provided support. They went out and organized their own community. And basically had some had packed rooms, some had maybe 10 to 15 people that came, but they came out, and then what they did was they surveyed their street by street, and everything, writing down all the issues that they saw, and then we got all that kind of stuff in. Somebody came in our office, we put it on the spreadsheet. We had a Google Doc that they can access. We got all that information, 1 minute, all that information out, and everything. The administration was able to come and say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. And this is how much we can do, and this is a strategy to actually address those issues. That's what community organizing does. And so residents are able to see, and they saw in 2017, they're going to see it in 2018, they saw the quality of life issues dealt with, according to what their priorities are and everything. And so that's in the presentation. I don't know if there's any questions, but I don't think I have any time to answer any questions. But thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's give it up one more time for Travell. That was a lot of information in like 8 minutes. So my name's Kayla Geschke. I work for Neighborhood Connections. I grew up in the city of Cleveland. I'm from Old Brooklyn. I moved away for several years, and I came back, and I'm staying still on the west side, Detroit Shoreway. And since I moved back about 4 years ago, I've been doing community network building, which is the type of way to build relationships in community in order to take social change. So now I'm at Neighborhood Connections, and this is definitely our model. Who's heard of Neighborhood Connections before? Oh, yeah. Okay, right. So most of us, what do you know about Neighborhood Connections? Just shout it out. Right. That's the first thing everybody says. We give out money.
Neighbor up.
I like that one. So we're known for being a small grants organization. Over the last 15 years, we've given out millions of dollars to small groups in Cleveland and East Cleveland. I'm sorry, it's not Cleveland Heights. That want to make change in their neighborhood. And it's from anything, from building pocket parks. Have you ever got Neighborhood Connections grant? Right. Anyone else? No? Yeah. So building small pocket parks, it could be to start a block club, it could be to start a mural in your neighborhood, a community garden, to do an after-school program that builds community. We do everything. But after a few years of doing that, Neighborhood Connections started to notice that there's lots of people doing a lot of good things in our region, but not everybody was connecting with each other. So there was groups that had the desire to do good, to make their community better, and there's incremental change, but there might be 3 block clubs all doing community gardens within a mile of each other, and they don't know about each other. So that's when we really started investing and trying to figure out, how do we connect people? How do we build relationships around issues that people care about? And we started doing community network building. So what that is trying to bring together people who have been frustrated and isolated by like our current environment. I mean, who's frustrated with some things going on in our city, your community, your country? Anybody? Hopefully that's why you're here. So we have a lot of resources in Cleveland. We have a lot of movements. We have a lot of nonprofits, and in East Cleveland and Cleveland Heights as well. But this is always a top-down strategy. We've been doing this for decades, right? And the change has been good, but it's been slow. And our model is really that if you don't go from the ground up, that change is not going to be sustainable. So what Neighborhood Connections excels at is creating spaces of aspiration where people can connect and build relationships. And I'm going to echo Travell for sure, because the basis of all your community work really should be building relationships in order to get things done. And when you're doing that and creating spaces, you want to create spaces that are aspirational and fun. So congratulations to Susie, because you brought us all here. Partly because you're interested in getting things done, but partly because there's here, right? So what we started doing at Neighborhood Connections is holding neighbor nights and network nights where people come, and it's different than your typical block club. Do we have a lot of block clubs here in Cleveland Heights? Yes. So what are some issues that have come up in your block clubs? Just shout them out. Dog poop? Okay. What else? Nuisance properties, right? So mostly like reactive stuff, right? Reacting to issues that are frustrating people. When we create neighbor nights and network nights and Neighborhood Connections, the idea is that it's very democratic. A lot of block clubs have had the same leaders for years, and they've definitely gotten some great things done. But sometimes it's not always inviting for new people to come in those spaces. People don't know how to access them. And so at Neighbor Connections kind of gatherings, what we do is create a space where people can come and they can invest a little bit. They don't have to be a block club leader. They can come and check it out, or they can put their whole selves in and take on an issue with other people who are interested in that work. So one thing we do is we don't have an agenda beforehand, but whoever's there creates that agenda together. So you might have people in the room that only want to talk about one thing. Those people are allowed to go and have a conversation about that thing, and everyone doesn't have to participate. It could be that you're trying to address dog poop, or you're trying to address overgrown grass, or you want to like really address safety issues in your neighborhood, or maybe it's aspirational and you want to build something more powerful. All of those things have come out of neighborhood connection spaces, and we've really grown in the kind of things that we offer. A couple examples of wins I'll do really quick. One is that when we've been holding these spaces, we get like in University Circle area, consistently 90 to 100 people come. And what issue that kept coming up was jobs and employment. And so a group of people who were interested in working on that got together and built relationships with people at institutions. So even though the institutions are not always serving our interests, they're still people that we need to work with, their assets in our community. The magic happens when we bring the people in the neighborhood and the residents in to meet with people at the institutions and demand what they're looking for, build that relationship. So what happened from there is we partnered with University Hospital and Towards Employment, and now there's a local hiring pipeline for the communities that are right around University Hospital and University Circle. And now I think over 300 people have been hired locally from those neighborhoods that weren't getting hired necessarily before because there's this special pipeline relationship. Yeah, it's awesome. So that's one thing that came out of that space. I'm going to brag on Felina, who's in the room. Felina was a member of Neighbor Up Network. She's come to this meeting for years and was interested in how can small business owners succeed? How can we have female Black-owned businesses in our neighborhoods? So she got people together. They read some books together. They went on some learning trips to Detroit. From there, they started vending at Night Market and Wade Oval. And why don't you say what your success is right now? Shout it out for everyone.
We opened up a pop-up shop that's transitioning into a permanent space on Larchmere.
So all this came from relationship building for a long time before taking action. And it's from people doing it from the ground up and with each other. So we're Neighbor Connection, we're not directive about any of the things we take on. We look for energy and resonance with people and then build up those programs responsibly. So I want to leave at least a couple minutes for questions. Before that though, like if you're interested, I know that we don't do grants in Cleveland Heights, but we do a lot of support for people who are looking to take action in their community. So twice a month we have action clinics on the first and third Monday at Neighborhood Connections. And I left a lot of literature on the table over there. And this kind of, you got it right there, beautiful. So you can come, like if you have even a group of 2 or 3 people that are interested in a topic and you want to figure out what is the next step, how do we take action? We're willing to help you figure that out. Another thing is that if you're like looking how to like change up the space or the meetings you run to make them more aspirational, fun, one rule we have is that don't invite people to something you wouldn't actually want to go to. It seems pretty common sense, but how many times do we organize something that you're like, oh, I don't even want to go tonight? So we have opportunities to learn how to make space more democratic, more enjoyable. It's called the community of practice, and we teach people how to do some of the devices. A lot of things we do is like even when you walk into the room, to get to the relationship flowing is you introduce yourself, you say what's good, you get good energy in the room. You get to know each other first, and then you get to work. So all of that, some of the stuff that we do is in this pamphlet, and we partner with Mr. Shupp, Professor Shupp at Case, the Community Innovation Network, on a lot of this programming that we have here. We've been doing that, this is what, our third term? Right, and that's been really great. So you can, all kinds of stuff that you're looking in order to like build your capacity as a community leader, you could be found in here with that partnership. So does anybody have questions?
Let's hold that today.
Okay, yeah.
You had 1 minute.
So
Hi, I'm Brenda May. I'm with Noble Neighbors, and I need to find out, first of all, who it is I'm speaking to. Although I recognize several of you that are here from either the city or from Noble Neighbors, how many of you are wanting to start some kind of a block club or a neighborhood club? Okay. A couple of you are. How many of you are here because you're MSAS students or you're MSAS affiliated? The Case Western program? Okay. I think probably the most helpful thing that I could do is just tell you a little bit of our story of kind of the things that we've learned along the way. Unlike, let me start with, we started in January of 2014. The way a lot of kind of groups like this start is there was a very serious crime in our neighborhood, and a woman sent out an email to everyone she knows and says, we got to do something about this, and invited people to her living room a week away, and a number of people showed up, and of course we're very alarmed about that. And we discovered that when you stay in that alarm mode, that you don't move anywhere. And so very quickly we started to look at our neighborhood situation and said, what are the things that we can do to make changes in the neighborhood? And in addition to that, what can we do with no staff and no budget? And which is, it's always hard for us to hear things like, all this funding is available for Cleveland and East Cleveland, and none of it is, at this point, available to Cleveland Heights residents, with the exception of the Future Heights mini grant program, which we're very grateful for. And absolutely. And so I'm going to ask you to do something that's like the absolute wrong thing a speaker should ask you to do, is like pull out your smartphone. Would you please pull out your smartphone right now? And would you please log on to nobleneighbors.com? And while I'm just talking about a few things, I want you to cruise all over that webpage, and you can find out some of the things that we've been up to. And it's pretty stunning for only 4 years now. I want to ask you to look, in addition to the homepage right now, look for the one tab that says meetings and initiatives, and just start looking for all those, just kind of a chronicle of a lot of different things that we've been trying to do. We're doing a lot of throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. The first thing that we learned is that we need to change the neighborhood narrative. We need to change, first of all, the way we talk about our own neighborhood, and we also need to help change the way the rest of the city and even the region talks about our neighborhood. We had no help from a local newspaper outlet who was constantly publishing stories, which basically were the same thing over and over again. Men were behaving badly at bars, sometimes with guns. And we had that story, was the story about our neighborhood over and over and over again, which indeed was a problem, but it does not characterize our entire neighborhood. We also had a problem of our property values were collapsing very disproportionately to the rest of the city. They matched what was going on in East Cleveland in terms of property value collapse. So we had the issue of people having to, you're moving out of the city, you can't even get people to come look at your home, much less can you try to unload it, and people are walking away. We had all these housing abandonment issues. So one of the first things a former city council person said to us is, what if you held a real estate fair? What if you invited everybody to have open houses on the same day? And that was our very first public event. And so we got realtors together from all the major agencies here in Cleveland Heights and said, can you do this? And they were like, absolutely we can do this, but nobody comes to open houses unless you have an event. Can you host an event? We have no budget. We have no staff. We said, okay, anybody who wants to hold a yard sale that day. Let's just try to get people in by the boatloads. So it was a Sunday afternoon, and we had just an incredible amount of people and activity. We've since, as you start looking on those meetings and initiatives, you see that this event has now exploded. We're about to hold our fourth one, is that right? Yeah. Coming up, and somebody mentioned earlier partnering with schools, both the Cleveland Heights elementary schools in our area hold their large public family days during that weekend now, Noble Fest, Oxford Carnival. We're partnering with anybody that we can partner with. Almost every church in the neighborhood has hosted us, just given us meeting space and time in there at no cost. If you want a hot tip, if you're a person who's organizing that, one of the things that we do just to say thanks to those institutions is we just have a basket, and anybody who wants to just toss a buck in, and offer that back to the hosting institution, saying, here, it goes back to your building fund. We know that it costs you money just to have us in the building today. And so that's like a really great way to stay in the good graces with these institutions. And we are looking at, some of you, I'm learning some of the MSAS words like asset-based, whatever it is, organizing. And that's exactly what some of these events, you're laughing because you know that one. And that's exactly what these events are doing, is saying what's the asset. And so, a business or a institution comes to us and say, we want to participate in we are noble event, what can we do? It's like, you do you. You do what you do best. Showcase your business the best. Showcase your church. We have a home repair resource center is in our end of town. The library. We have the police academy in our end of town. They open wide those large garage doors in this vintage fire station and let you come in and take a tour, and they give away free hot dogs and stuff like that. Some of the other things that you're looking at on this is some of the other challenges we've looked at is some of you may be aware that they wanted to put a gigantic gas station in our neighborhood, and long story short, and you can read it there, I'm delighted to say that we could partner with our Cleveland Heights council people to deny that zoning request, to make that available. Yeah. So that eliminated that, but of course now we have another opportunity with a very large vacant lot sitting right there. We this past July organized just a let's get together and just brainstorm what would we like to see happen in, we're calling it the Triangle District, Mayfield, Noble, Warrensville, which is where the Center Mayfield Theater area what Center Mayfield used to be in that area. And that alone was just very propelling. I mean, on one sense, there's nothing that came out of that meeting that will be built. We didn't expect that our drawings are going to be implemented exactly right there on the spot, but I'm sure telling you that it's making a difference about how people are talking about the area and what they imagine. I'll give you an example. I was in a little bit on a conversation of a planner that was just kind of being interviewed for potentially where another agency is going to hire a planner to plan for the area. And as he was talking about the area, he was not defining it with the same boundaries that we were. There's a church in that area that is very active in this community in a variety of ways, serving all sorts of needs of especially kids in the elementary school, as well as other serving other kinds of groups there. And they wanted to kind of cut that out because the real estate wasn't in play. They wanted to not define them in the area. Well, that doesn't match. That doesn't match what we're doing here. So it's real interesting. Part of one of the things that we're doing right now, and I think you mentioned reading books, is if you're looking at our homepage, one of the things that you're seeing is that we've decided to kind of do a little group education, trying to educate ourselves so we are better informed about having conversations. And you MSAS folks are jumping all over the fact that Peter Block and John McKnight are two of the people that we're reading, and Putnam with Bowling Alone. And we are trying to do this mashup of how do these things inform what we're doing in our neighborhood. How does that help us have conversations with the city about planning here? How does that help us have better conversations with Future Heights, which is also very supportive about making changes? So since I only have a couple of minutes left, I'd like to open this up to noble neighbors that are here. I'll take your question here, and after I take your question, noble neighbors, if you want to offer what it is that's making a difference for you about the fact that we have this all volunteer, no budget organization going on. So your question.
It seems like you organized in response to a single incident, but you would stay together and run the community together. What improvements do you see overall in your community that are created by these neighbors getting together?
Great question. Does a noble neighbor want to answer that? Anyone? Go ahead, Carol.
Well, Noble Road got paved, and we have had a lot of work with the city in terms of cleaning up where the city has facilities, and we've gotten included in the activities around the beautification projects with the cutouts and the more trees, and so we've seen changes in terms of the appearance of the neighborhood.
So the city's contributed to some things. Robin, you want to answer that question?
As far as the city goes, we know we're supposed to be reckoned with now, and that feels very powerful, where we felt kind of ignored for years and years, and now we know that the city is not forgetting us, and that is very good.
One of the things which is harder to measure than how much pavement there is on Noble Road or how smooth it is a very palpable sense in the neighborhood of, this is a good place to be, where there used to be a palpable kind of fear. And I think one of the things, if I'm going to offer those of you who want to organize, or those of you who are MSAS students, one of the biggest lessons I think we've learned is to have a very, very broad definition of what it means to be a noble neighbor. It is not merely the, consistently 30 to 40 people that show up at our monthly meetings, which that alone is stunning, after 4 years that we still have people increasingly having larger groups. But it does, you're not defined about being a noble neighbor if you only attend the meetings. We've got a lot of people that are working in all their corners of the neighborhood, like the PTA people. So it's about the connections that you were talking about. It's about those relationship building and all working together towards the same common goal. So that's a critical. Yeah.
When are your meetings?
First Tuesdays of the month, typically, not always, and they're on the homepage. There you'll find. So February 6th is the first Tuesday, and that'll be at Central Bible Baptist. Unlike, for example, like the neighborhoods you're defining, which are just a couple of blocks, which would be very manageable. We've got 2 square miles. We're literally, a quarter of the city. And so purposefully we move our meetings around the neighborhood because different corners of the neighborhood I meet, different people will come to the meetings because they identify more with that area. Robin, has something else to add?
What you can see are beautiful gardens.
Yeah. We've got this woman that we call the Flower Gal who has created at least 6 now public perennial gardens.
Just a real quick thing, it may sound little, but I've only been here a few years, and we now have a lot of streets in the Noble neighborhood that are having street parties in the summer, and the neighbors who live in those areas who have lived there a long time have told me that they haven't had those in many, many, many years. And so we're getting to know our neighbors where for a long time that had not been going on. And that brings people together and also increases security, and it's nice to work with your neighbors better.
We're going to open up questions for any of the speakers, so we can keep this going.
Dr. Chuck?
Would you say that the mayor of Cleveland Heights grew out of noble neighbors?
Kind of a both and. Carol, as you may know, has been very active in the political scene for a very, very long time. And if you are in her house, you see pictures of her with Hillary, and you see pictures of her with Obama, and you see pictures of her with all sorts of people. But absolutely, she's
claim her as a success.
Absolutely, we'll claim it.
Other questions from the audience for any of our speakers? We can open it up to everyone.
Questions or comments would be welcome. Brenda, one thing I would just I'm not active as a noble neighbor, but I am a noble neighbor by residence. And I was saying, one thing I noticed, especially during the Neela Park lighting display, how the neighborhood was really decorated. Like that little park at Roanoke and Noble was decorated, and and I think sometimes, like, especially all the problems that came to our neighborhood during the foreclosure crisis, it made it seem like everything was, the most we could expect was like the most basic survival. But it's really been more than that. It's like it feels like we have a real neighborhood again. That things, people are making things look nice, their businesses, their houses, things like that. So I think that's come out of the Noble Neighbors Initiative also.
Vince, I'm going to put that on our quote wall. Yeah, that was unsolicited.
Oh,
For neighborhood connections, are you ever gonna open it up to surrounding areas like Cleveland Heights
For grants specifically, not to my knowledge. Maybe if there was a huge demand and we had some extra funding. We've partnered with other organizations over time, both IOB and Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, to do funding. So we're still like orchestrating the grants and doing the interviews. So if there was an organization that wanted to fund something in Cleveland Heights, in the Office of Sustainability, then we could help facilitate that if there was something like that. So if people wanted to have that conversation with people that are interested in funding in Cleveland Heights, like we could be a partner on that.
I'm gonna jump in. So Future Heights is a community organization in Cleveland Heights, and we have a small grants program that we offer to residents because there was such a demand and we saw a need for small grants and projects. So we don't have as much funding. We have $6,000 a year that we give. But it's sufficed so far because the program is new and it's growing. The next deadline is March 15th. And we also have a workshop series that Mark Chubb actually helped start. And it's also kind of been a response to the need for community building and coaching in this area. And Future Heights hosts both of those. And that program begins March 11th.
Sure, and that was a combination of the institutions being ready to do something like that and the neighbors demanding it. So it was for the neighborhoods that immediately surround University Circle and University Hospital. And it's been really successful in the retention rate because people live close to where they work, and because we partnered with Towards Employment, who've done some like wraparound training. So I think the key to that though is having the neighbor and residents create the demand for it, and then finding your champions on the inside, that one or two people from those institutions that get where you're coming from and want to work with you. Did that answer your question?
Find the right people. I have a question for Travell. So first, commendation. I think your work on Addison Park is awesome. And I'm just wondering whether you've given any thought to reimagining the East Cleveland side of Forest Hill Park, in which we, Cleveland Heights, are a very able-bodied and willing partner, courtesy of Mr. Rockefeller. And General Park.
Yeah, I should have brought Gordon. I should have brought so just say so. There's an organization called the Forest Hill Park Association that's part of the East Cleveland, the Forest Hill community up there, and they've been actually working tirelessly to actually maintain the property as best as they can. And then also, I mean, I don't know if it's okay to say now, but like conversations with the Metro Parks to actually help us to maintain those parks as well, which I think is a great thing, taking advantage of any regional resource that we can possibly use.
So, is there any other comments or questions from the group? If not, what we were thinking of doing next is just sort of letting, first of all, like if we could just acknowledge our presenters tonight. Barbara has something to.
Well, I just wanted to just make a few comments about what I received from this very talented group here. And one of the things I heard, we did hear some ideas, some great ideas, some thoughts, but you also have some great ideas and thoughts, and we definitely want to hear from you. But some of the things I heard was that we need to connect, reconnect, and stay connected. Okay? That is what will be able to move us forward. That what needs to be done is bigger than just one person or just you, but it's going to take all of us, and there is power in numbers. It was repeated over and over again, we are bigger and better together. Now, I do live in the Noble neighborhood, and so I've witnessed the progress that I've seen there, and of course it is pleasing. But we must remember that a burden shared lessens the load. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to connect, to reconnect, and then to stay connected as we move our project, our ideas, and our thoughts forward. Now, Vince has some thoughts about moving people along as we progress through the program, and you were going to make those announcements. But those are some of the thoughts that came to my mind as we were, as the presenters were talking.
It's just, I think the last thing, and then we'll maybe just, I think, break into informal conversation, but if there's anybody here who has a specific topic or area of concern that they are particularly interested in, if you would want to identify yourself now, and maybe we could find some kindred spirits here in the room tonight, people you don't know. Or if there aren't any apparent kindred spirits, you could talk with us and we could help you connect with people. Susan?
I'm interested in doing tree planting in neighborhoods, so I'm looking for neighborhoods where you don't have a tree canopy and you have neighbors who want trees. And so, have to do that.
Yeah. That's great, because I know a street that you might be interested in that you used to live on that could use some trees. So,
Really?
yes.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, okay. Any other things? Yes, CJ.
This is something I'm kind of curious about. This isn't the right venue for it to let me know, but Cleveland Heights is a very diverse community, which is fabulous. Something I have noticed is many meetings like this aren't as diverse as our community is. And I know I have quite a few neighbors who don't attend because they're working multiple jobs or they're working nights or something. My question is, how do we get more people involved who are not involved now?
That's a good question, and I certainly don't have the answer, but yeah.
I'm happy to come strategize with you after we have a drink.
Yeah, that would be great, because I think that's really a critical issue, CJ. Yes. Oh.
To answer that from the Noble Neighbors perspective, we talk about that from time to time. If you come into our meetings, you will notice that it's very skewed. We call ourselves the generation of people who remember when Kennedy was shot. So, so the point is, why aren't, on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, why aren't younger people there? Well, they're where they're supposed to be. They're at home. They're doing homework hour. They're doing bath time. They're doing the things that we want them to be doing at that time. So that's part of why, at least for Noble Neighbors, the definition needs to be really broad about, yes, when you're active about building community, you're doing it through your school. And that's absolutely what we need you to do. So it's recognizing that it's not just merely the people in the meeting that are pretty critical to the community.
So I'm sure we can't figure out, I mean, we're not going to be able to talk about this whole thing today. I just want to just leave some little tidbits. And so community organizing, we know that we're able to build power through relationships. But the thing is, it's very tedious to do those types of things because you have to be really you have to be really authentic as far as like in really engaging relationships. And so what connects people together to work together is a term that we call, and Phil knows, is called self-interest. Right? In other words, and so I can talk to people blue in the face about God knows what, you know, but if that's not what they're interested in, they're not going to be motivated to move or act around those things. So a couple of things. Yeah, one of the things I think that will like increase diversity here is to actually, there's something that we call one-to-ones and everything, but like really digging deep and actually intentionally building relationships with people that you don't know. One good exercise would be like, if you had a mixer like this or anything, like to go find someone. You ever had those things where, you know, like speed dating almost, where you go meet somebody that you would never sit down with and have a conversation with them and everything, but learn about what motivates that person, what they're passionate about, that kind of thing. Because then you can begin to uncover their self-interest, or what I simply mean about that is the things that motivate them. You know, what is the source of their motivation, and then what actually glues people together is, well, number one, when you build relationships with people by actually intentionally going and talking to people. We call that on a global scale. We did in East Cleveland. It's called listening campaign, right? But when you do that, then number one, you humanize that other person, right? In the ways that it wasn't before, that type of thing. And two, you build a closer bond. So if you sat down and knew about, you know, my family, my wife, my children, you know, my fears, my aspirations, and all those kind of things, and I knew that about you, then if I saw you down the street later on, then I think that we'd be a lot more connected than we are right now and everything. And so it's a very tedious process. There's no shortcut. Really building authentic relationships with people and really understanding what motivates people, that's the beginning of it. And then once you identify what motivates people, what that self-interest is, the key then is to connect that to your own. In other words, how does that self-interest connect to what I want in my community? Are they the same? Are there some commonalities? Are there some overlaps? And then that's what I think actually, that's when you begin to build that's sort of like enough relationships work together to be able to to actually move and change things in your neighborhood.
You know, one of the things I'm thinking about is like people connect with like people. Sheep draw sheep. If you want young people at a meeting, then you have to have young people talking to other young people. That is how you build. So you find one or two young people that you can connect with, talk to, and then you have those young people bring in other young people. I know I'm 70, so I'm going to bring in maybe 60 to 75-year-old people. But my children, who are in their 50s, are going to bring in 50-year-old people. But my grandchildren, in their 20s and 30s, they're going to bring in 20 and 30 people. Look at the parties. If a party is being thrown by a young person, young people are there. Because people connect with people who are like them. So we have to do a better job of reaching across the aisle, and all you need is just a couple young people to bring in other young people. Sheep draw sheep. Okay? That's my short answer.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks. Anything else from yes, in the back?
And a lot of people in Cleveland Heights are in their 70s, some in their 80s. A lot of times when they pass, their homes go into foreclosure. Cleveland Heights has a lot of homes in foreclosure. I think that what the community groups need to do is go to the neighbor you never see. The older person whose walkway is never shoveled, and bring those people out. There's a lot of fear in the old community. There's a lot of poverty in the old community. Cleveland Heights doesn't address that. They address young people. But there's a lot, if somebody retired 20 years ago, and they're paying the taxes we pay now, they're living on nothing. And Cleveland Heights is not addressing it. All right? And we need to. Go up to the senior center, take a look around, bring those people in. We talked about the PTAs and we talked about the schools. What about the grade community? Cleveland Heights has a lot of grade community. And they have to bring those people in. That's just a thought. I hear a lot of talk about young people. I think we need to talk about older people. All we can do. All right? When they open the door and they're fearful, understand that fear. They don't know what's going on. Most of them don't have a 75, 80-year-old person does not have an Apple phone. Doesn't have an iPhone. Introduce yourself. Say, I have a son, he's 15, he's a junior law school. All right? Reach out to that elderly person in the community that says, get off my grass.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a point that we often overlook. Yeah. Okay. Sweet, do you want to? Yeah.
If you don't have any other questions, I'd encourage you to, in the spirit of building relationships and connecting with people, connect with each other, get to know each other. Sue Wolpert shared that she wants to plant some trees. CJ wants to talk about diversity, bring in other people. If there's other conversations, let's start tonight. Let's build those connections. Also, I just want to remind you that we do have a small grants program and a neighborhood leadership program, both starting this spring. So contact me and I will be happy to get you that information and encourage you to get involved and apply. And apply for our workshop. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a great night.